Hey guys, welcome to MMA Mad Unfiltered. I'm your host, Nick Rizner. The date is Monday, May 8th. It is UFC 211 fight week. So the plan for these videos, if you missed the breakdown from last week, the plan is basically to have this be a sort of wrap-up of, the three major points to focus on heading into a UFC event. I haven't really decided what we're going to do yet when there's not a UFC event, but for now, that's the plan, and we do have a sort of stretch of fight weeks coming up, so we'll keep doing that. If you want a more detailed breakdown, that's in the write-up on the website. So if you go to MMAMad.com, up on the tabs, you'll see MMA Mad Unfiltered. We're going to be doing a full write-up. Chances are you're either watching it on that post already, or you're watching it on YouTube, in which case I highly recommend you check out the website and get a more complete breakdown. The video segments, the audio segments, if you're listening in the audio player, it's basically just for this sort of quick beats, quick rundown of what to look for, what to get excited about, what to kind of dread in some cases. We'll see. It's not always going to be a top three moments, but that's what this will be moving forward. So you can get all our social media links, everything like that, in the description for this video. You can find it, in the description or on the actual post on the website as well. But this is very raw, very loose, as you can tell. I'm just talking normally. It's not scripted or anything. So there are going to be screw ups right now. For example, there's a fire truck or an ambulance, maybe a whole convoy of them going by my window. There's also a landscaper outside doing something, weed whacking or something, all at once. I was going to wait, but that's kind of the essence of keeping this unfiltered. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. So like I said, UFC 211, there are three main points that I sort of broke down, just jotted down little notes for them. First, obviously, the first thing that jumps out on any card like this is the two title fights. And it's interesting, too, because it's a heavyweight title fight and then a strawweight title fight. So obviously the biggest and smallest weight classes in the UFC. Fingers crossed one day I think maybe atomweight will sneak in. But for now, that's what we're dealing with. So Stipe Miocic versus Junior Dos Santos. That's a rematch of a previous fight that Junior Dos Santos actually won. And I've always liked those kind of situations, those kind of storylines heading into a fight like this, because naturally, the champion is going to have this sort of, honestly, I haven't looked at the betting odds, but the champion's going to have sort of the mental edge, the uneducated odds-on favorite, just because they're the ones on the belt. Obviously, they're champion for a reason. So when you have a fight like this where the challenger already has a win over the champion, I feel like that adds some sort of element to me. It makes it more intriguing to me. It kind of evens the perception of the odds going into the fight. Like I said, I don't know what the actual odds are, but it's interesting. So I'm looking forward to it for that reason. I think this is I talk about this a lot with heavyweights, but I feel like a lot of times you have these guys who probably could fight at 205, and for whatever reason they just don't. Like, I don't know if it's I don't know. Maybe they like the sort of speed of the heavyweights, obviously a little slower. In some cases, I actually think this is an example of two extremely fast, extremely athletic heavyweights. But I feel like sometimes there's guys who don't really belong in the heavyweight division, and for whatever reason, that's where they compete. This is an example of two absolute, true heavyweights. I think both guys couldn't go down to 205 if they wanted to. They're massive humans. They fight athletically as well, like I said. It's not like a slowed down version of a light heavyweight fight. These guys are really meant to be here. So really good striking, good boxing. It's a really fun matchup, so that's definitely one to look forward to. Let's see. Oh, Joanna's facing an actual bantamweight that dropped down. So for those of you who don't remember, Jessica Andrade was a bantamweight for a while. She actually has a win over Raquel Pennington, although it was a split decision, and part of Raquel Pennington's, revenge tour, I forget what she called it, but part of that whole deal was coming back and actually finishing Jessica Andrade. So she got that win back, but still, for my money, I think Rocky's one of the best fighters in the bantamweight division. So they even have a win over her is very impressive. And since she's dropped down to strawweight, she's won 3 in a row, I believe. So it's Joanna, who is the undisputed, not only queen of that division, but queen of women's MMA right now, ever since the fall of Rousey. Always more talented, by the way, but Rousey was just killing people. So the perception was there. But Joanna is obviously has that reputation for a reason. Jessica Andrade has looked phenomenal since dropping down to strawweight. I think a lot of people, we had Sean Al-Shadi on the podcast from MMA Fighting. We had him on the podcast not too long ago, I think 2-3 weeks ago maybe. But when we had him on, he actually predicted that Joanna might not make it through this fight. I heard other people sort of tease at that. Personally, I think Joanna's going to do it, but this is not a prediction segment. This is not why I'm doing these videos. So all I'll say is that it's a very exciting matchup, very exciting thing to look forward to. Moving forward, though, because Rose put on such a clinic on Michelle Waterson, I think Rose will face the winner of this fight, and just selfishly for that matchup, like keeping that in mind, I think Rose versus Joanna is the fight to make. So I guess as a fan, I'm kind of rooting for Joanna just because I want Rose to come in and finally get that matchup with a belt on the line. I just think Rose versus Joanna is, I don't know, I feel like it was built up for a while now, and I really want to see it. I thought she was going to get it after Carolina, but obviously Carolina edged that one out and got the title shot herself. But yeah, this is going to be a really good fight. 2 really good title fights. The whole main card is stacked. I'm not going to get into all of them, but the entire main card is stacked. What I will get into is the prelim headliner, which it's on FX, by the way, not on Fox Sports 1. Obviously, prelims, when they're on TV, are usually on Fox Sports 1. These are on FX, so make sure you're tuning into the right channel. Which, by the way, it sucks. I'm going to miss, I think, the majority of the prelims for this because I have other plans. Can't really talk about them, kind of a secret from people who might listen to this. But anyway, I do have other plans that day, so what I'm going to have to do is watch, I think, the Courtney Casey fight, which I'll get to that in a second. But the Courtney Casey fight I'll watch on my phone on Fight Pass and just burn data on my phone, which sucks. But what are you going to do? And the television portion of the card, I'm just going to have to miss. I'm hoping I can get back for Chaz Skelly versus Jason Knight. By the way, Jason Knight's coming on the podcast in a couple days. If you're watching this on Monday, he'll be out the Wednesday of fight week, so make sure you check out that podcast. But yeah, so I think I'm going to try to get back for that one, but for sure the one I cannot miss. Like, I will leave whatever I'm doing if it means I'm going to miss this. Dustin Poirier, Eddie Alvarez. I mean, that fight's got like fight of the year potential in my opinion. So Poirier, I first kind of got used to him or became familiar with him in the movie Fightville. And I'll fully admit, so I didn't really get like head over heels into MMA until Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva, like that whole rivalry leading up to that, the trash talk, that's kind of what got me hooked again. Like I've been watching since Ultimate Fighter 1, but not really diehard, not checking updates every single day. Since the Chael Sonnen, Anderson Silva rivalry, that's when I really started getting like into MMA. So with that, I wasn't really familiar with a lot of the people that I obviously would be in my current situation doing stuff like this, doing the podcast. So I will fully admit that this might be embarrassing to say, but just because I don't know the date of it. But Fightville, a documentary came out all about the sort of regional scene, MMA scene in Louisiana. And one of the main stars was Dustin Poirier. And I was watching this. He was trying to make it to the UFC. I think at the end of the documentary, he finally gets into the UFC. I remember looking it up like, oh, I wonder if he's still competing after I finished watching the documentary. And then sure enough, he was ranked at lightweight. So crazy. I mean, the guy, it might have been featherweight actually. I'm trying to think. He's bounced up and down. This fight's at lightweight, obviously, with Eddie Alvarez. But he's a guy I've been following for a long time. Really exciting fighter. He's constantly getting fight of the night bonuses, performance of the night bonuses, or back in the day it used to be submissions and knockouts, but really just his highlight reel is unbelievable. A lot of heart, and you could see some guys have heart, like they'll push through sticky situations, but with Poirier you can see it. Like you can see it. I don't know. He like fights very emotionally, but smart. I don't mean that as an insult. He fights smart, but emotionally, and it's really exciting to watch. Eddie Alvarez, kind of the mirror image of that as well. So I fully anticipate this to be a war. Honestly, these are guys that aren't capable of kind of putting on those stalemate fights, especially when matched up against each other. I feel like we've seen Eddie Alvarez in a couple boring fights. Also, he had the wars with Michael Chandler back in Bellator. He's had some really exciting fights. I'm trying to think, who's the guy who he just like ran through? It's slipping my mind right now. I think it was right before McGregor. He like ran through. But anyway, Dustin Poirier versus Eddie Alvarez is going to be absolutely the must-watch fight on this card. And I don't say that lightly because this lineup is stacked. So that's one that you definitely want to go audio rate. Like I said, I might have to leave whatever plans I'm doing because I will not miss that. I'll like run to the nearest bar. It's on TV, so I should be able to get people to switch it over. Quick side note, by the way, a lot of bars, they won't put on MMA because they think it induces fights like in the bar, which I don't know. That'll take way too long to explain, so I'm not getting into that. The third point that I wanted to make, the third sort of point of interest, at least from the MMA Mad perspective, is Courtney Casey fighting on this card. She's fighting. I get confused because Jessica Andrade, and then Jessica Aguilar. That's what it is. So also a strawweight. Courtney Casey is the undisputed Mount Rushmore of this podcast. We talk about it all the time. The Mount Rushmore. I forgot this isn't the podcast, by the way. Check out MMAMad.com for the podcast, MMA Mad Podcast. I'm the host of that as well. But we talk about all the time the Mount Rushmore of the podcast, and it's very clear. It's Wonder Boy. He comes on all the time. Really just nice guy. I think he has the record for most podcast appearances. It's Matt Bessette and kind of by extension the local scene. So Matt Bessette, Jeff Haddad, Matteo Yarella, Nick Newell, like the Connecticut MMA scene, if you want to call it that. We'll put them all collectively on one head of the Mount Rushmore podcast. David St. Martin, who's the one that got us kind of linked up with MMA fighting, made a huge difference back in the day. Also just extremely entertaining guest. And then Courtney Casey, who fights on this card. She was the first female guest, but she also just has been on like a record number of times. She really entertaining. She talks some shit about when it's deserved, but she talks shit about some of the other fighters in the division. It's just exciting. Good interview. So she's somebody that we always sort of pay special attention to when she fights, and rightfully so, by the way. She gets fight of the night all the time, does a really good job. She's fighting this card. She's fighting on Fight Pass. The Fight Pass headliner, which, traditionally they've kind of used that as a slot to get people to subscribe to Fight Pass. Obviously, they're trying to sell subscriptions. So what they'll do is, I'll be honest, a lot of the fights on Fight Pass aren't the most prestigious fights, but that headliner, the top fight on Fight Pass, is almost always some sort of draw, some sort of prestigious matchup just to get people to buy the Fight Pass subscription. So, and you don't have to, by the way, if you've never used it before, which if you're an MMA fan, you should. But if you've never used Fight Pass before, you can get that free trial. Highly recommend you use it for this one because Courtney Casey is never in a boring fight. And honestly, Jessica Aguilar is somebody who can definitely push her to those levels. She's ranked. This is a chance for Courtney Casey, especially in the strawweight division where everything's kind of still turned on its head. It hasn't really quite sorted itself out. The rankings don't make a lot of sense. I think that a win here over, given the rest of her sort of career so far, a win over, I think she's ranked number 8 right now, over a top 10 opponent would probably get Courtney into the top 10. So it's obviously a big fight for her. They all are. But this should be a fun one to watch. So right there, the whole main card, you have to watch the main card. The Courtney Casey fight on Fight Pass, the prelim headliner between Dustin Poirier and Eddie Alvarez, also the Chaz Skelly, Jason Knight one. That should be a war as well. 2 really, really top prospects and podcast guests. Quick shout out. I think that's pretty much that. I mean, the whole card, this is one of those ones you're probably going to want to carve out, block your day, and watch the whole thing beginning to end. But if you have to get up, you got to run some errands or whatever, make sure you don't miss those fights, the ones I just named. They're absolutely must-watch matchups, especially in a calendar year where we really haven't seen a lot of must-watches. So that's my little shout-out there. Like I said, there's a much more extensive breakdown on the website. If you go to MMAMad.com, click on the MMA Mad Unfiltered tab. As I'm recording this now, we'll see. I think I'm supposed to have a logo made out. Same guy who did my podcast logo. John Sheehan, quick shout out from Ireland, one of the best graphic designers that I know. He's supposed to be doing a custom MMA Mad Unfiltered logo, so that should be on its way at some point. You might be looking at it right now. I'm not really sure, but thank you guys for listening. Like I said, this is gonna be every Monday. It's gonna be really raw, really conversational, just like this. I'm not gonna make it highly edited or produced. I'm not gonna script anything. I'm really not gonna prepare that much, other than just kind of listing my top 3 points of interest heading into a card. But that'll do it. I appreciate you guys checking out everything MMA Mad. We'll have all your event coverage there, all your fight week coverage throughout the week. So make sure you keep checking in for media day, scrums, weigh-ins, all the official weigh-in results. We'll have pretty much everything leading up to this. So that'll do it. Quick shout out to Ari Shafir, by the way. Welcome back, buddy. We talked about this earlier. Hopefully we'll have him on the podcast at some point. Obviously, that's one of my bucket list podcasts. It's my favorite podcast to listen to, I would say. The Ari Shafir Skeptic Tank. He was gone for 4-month hiatus. He's finally back. The first episode back was fire. So highly recommend you check that out. No reason for saying that other than the fact that I'm a fan and I have this platform. So yeah, that'll do it. Take care, guys. I hope you enjoy your week. I hope you find some time to watch UFC 211, and I hope you tune in next Monday.
MMA Mad.